Now, I knew there was something wrong immediately because if you look at any of the other Indiana Jones movies, every single one begins with the same thing, and that's a Paramount logo, which transforms into a real mountain or an image of a mountain. In the Crystal Skull, it transforms into a pile of dirt, so we knew right away something was wrong with that movie. But in this movie, they didn't do the Paramount logo, and immediately I was like, this is wrong. We just see Nazis dragging a man with a bag over his head, and they eventually pull the bag off to reveal a young, deepfake CGI Harrison Ford as Indiana Jones. And there's certain shots whenever you're watching a CGI image of a person, if the action moves real quick and they turn their head, their eyes are crossed.
Yeah.
The very beginning of the movie, it goes on, it seems like forever. And he's running across the top of the train. Once again, did not look like a real guy, looked fake. Meanwhile, there's another guy, another character that's introduced, played by Mads Mikkelsen. He's like a Nazi scientist, and he tries to tell the Nazi the thing that you want, this spear head that's supposed to have stabbed Christ on the cross and drew blood. He tells him it's a fake, it's useless. What you really want is this dial. This dial thing is the real thing.
What does it do?
He says that it's a mathematical device, and that if you get this device, you'll be greater than a Führer. You'll be like a god. And they finally defeat the Nazi guy, but then they have to jump from the train before it blows up, so the artifact is lost.
Then we cut to Indiana Jones lonely in his apartment.
We see that from papers that are on his desk that his marriage has ended. You discover that his son, Mutt, had enlisted in the war in Vietnam and was killed.
Yeah.
So you have the context of this is why he's alone. He's a professor, as he's in the other movies. So he's giving a lecture on the siege of Syracuse. Nobody in the class is paying attention to anything he's saying. They're not listening to him except for one person, Phoebe Waller-Bridge, the character of Helen. We find out that she is his goddaughter, that she is the daughter of Basil, played by Toby Jones, who has died many years before. She's expressing interest in the dial, so he takes her to the library and basically showed her the half of the dial that he still had. That I guess it wasn't actually lost, like they said it was lost. But we see in a flashback that Basil told Indiana Jones, you must destroy it. At this point, the Nazi bad guys try to take the dial, and they shoot some innocent civilians along the way. You find out right away these guys mean business. They're not just your typical bad guys. They're going to kill innocent people. And so we have our first really good chase sequence, in my opinion, better than the CGI one at the beginning. He's with the horse. He goes into the subway, which is one of the most exciting scenes in the movie. He has to go after her.
Oh, because she stole the
She took it to Tangiers, I believe, and she's trying to sell it on the black market. And he comes into this bar. It's kind of like a scene out of Casablanca or something. There's a whole bunch of bad guys, and it's a black market thing, and they're all bidding on this artifact.
I stole it from you. You stole it from him. That's capitalism.
I always love it when some Hollywood movie gives you a line about capitalism, like, who's more greedy than you people? So, yeah, he pulls out the whip, and then everybody pulls their guns on him. It was one of the few humorous moments in the movie. Anyway, it leads to another chase sequence. It goes on for a long time. Another time where it seemed like the longest chase sequence ever.
This is where your $300 million budget goes.
Yeah, and it was fine. I like that it wasn't just her driving. I thought, okay, this is what's going to happen. He's just going to be a passenger, and she's going to try to be that. But he just said, give me that wheel, and he took charge. And then it did switch up where she ends up driving. Then he ends up driving again. They were arguing and bantering back and forth. And that was one of the few times. And it was like, I'm starting to like her a little bit, you know, even though she's a scoundrel. And so it's just a lot of that. It's like chase here, chase there. And it just turns into
location after location.
Yeah, and MacGuffin to MacGuffin, right? Like, now we need to go find this. It was like a tool of some kind.
I couldn't even remember, but I think they ended up with Antonio Banderas.
Which I thought was strange because he comes on screen. Everybody's like, hey, it's Antonio Banderas. And then the next scene is not Antonio Banderas. In a normal movie, when you introduce someone like that, the next scene is that person and the main character having a conversation, you know, giving some exposition or, you know, how things been with you and here's what we're into and these bad guys are coming to get us. None of that. They went from, hey, it's great to see you. Next scene is him and the girl again talking. And I'm like, where's Antonio Banderas? Then Antonio Banderas walks into the scene halfway through and it's like he's just standing there.
Yeah, and he died.
Yeah, but he goes and dives with them down into the water and then next thing you know, he's killed.
he died within 5 minutes.
Seemed very wasted to me. How much money did they pay that guy to be in the movie?
So Mads Mikkelsen wanted to turn back time and change something in the past so that Germany would win World War II. That was the whole goal.
He was going to eliminate Hitler because he said that Hitler made all the mistakes and he would be the new Führer, and he would do all things the right way so that Germany would win.
They were wanting to go back to Germany, but instead they went back to the time of Archimedes, the guy who invented the dial.
What you find out is that Archimedes basically had set this thing to only come back to him. That was where the movie was clever, finally. At the beginning of the movie, he's teaching a class about this exact battle. And now he's in the battle. He's there. He's witnessing it with his own eyes.
Yeah, like what would a historian want more than go back to history and experience the event firsthand?
So for him, this is like his lifelong dream. And that's why he wants to stay. Like he has a reason to be like, I've got nothing to go back for. My son's dead. My wife wants nothing to do with me.
You can't stay here, Indy. There's hope in life. That felt so forced. Like, oh my goodness, like this is not Phoebe Waller-Bridge level acting. This is so cheesy. This is so flat.
It's also, you're shoehorning in some emotional things that didn't exist for the rest of the entire movie.
It was out of the blue.
It doesn't really fit.
So anyway, Phoebe Waller-Bridge punches Indiana Jones. Indiana Jones is back in his apartment and then he meets Marion. Okay, so let me tell you what I mean by something they could have done to make the story better. So now just imagine if the story went like this. Instead of that 5 minutes or 10 minutes screen time Indy has looking for the knife, why not use that 5 minutes to show Shia LaBeouf enlisting in the war and Indy is against it? Then Shia LaBeouf dies. Marion now hates Indy for not doing enough to stop their son from going to war. Then boom. We see Indy alone in his apartment mourning his son's death, and all of this is just 5 minutes, right? Like the first 5 minutes of Up.
Yes.
But luckily, Phoebe Waller-Bridge shows up with the Dial of Destiny. This thing is an opportunity for Indy to travel back in time, change the past, and bring his son back to life. I wouldn't even care what they do in the middle as long as in the end, Indy realizes he can change the past and bring back his son back to life. So he lets go of that grief. Then as a reward, he gets Marion back. They kiss and grow old together, happily ever after. Goodbye, Indiana Jones and Marion. It's been a fun ride. And that's where I cry.
Yeah. I like your idea, but I would say that would make this way more of an emotional type movie than any of the other Indiana Jones. None of them are like that. However, if this is the finale, and you've established at the beginning of the movie that he's lost his son and he's lost his marriage, that's significant enough that you could make that work into the story and have a satisfying ending, just like you said. But, it's kind of sweet at the end. It's kind of sweet ending. And I think you're right. Isn't it amazing, Paul, how much story is told in the first few minutes of Up? And why can't most movies be that good?
I know.
Isn't it amazing how much good writing happens in just a few scenes in a cartoon that real movies just can't seem to figure out?